Welcome everyone to the Monday Night Live Q&A. Dr. Skip Speer is joining me tonight on this live Q&A. I have known Skip for a long time. I knew him before he was doctor. So, and that's true of Dr. Rob too. I've known both of them since before they were doctor, but it's been a journey. And when I first met Skip, I was like, you have to follow through and be a CSAT and be in this world. And guess what? He did. And he's a great therapist. I refer often to him for people who are in his licensed state. So, but he's gone on to get his doctor, and I'm going to let you tell a little bit about that. You know what
Sure.
your journey has been, and I will also let you know that Skip has been hosting a drop-in group on our site. What did we decide? It was 6 years,
Five. I think
five
it's
years,
five or
yeah.
6 years, one
Yeah,
of
I
those.
like we lose track of time. It was just
Yeah.
like it's just been amazing what that journey. So your dedication to dropping groups, we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's talk a little bit about CSAT and your doctor.
Mhm.
Tell me more.
Well, so good evening, everybody. As Tammy said, my name is Skip, and she's dating us all, but she and I met in 2015 when I started the CSAT training, and I completed the first couple of modules, and then I was doing some other things professionally, and Tammy reached out and recruited me, and I'm just so grateful for you doing that. And
Persistent. I was persistent, and it
Uh,
worked.
100%. And the way that I actually became a CSAT, that I went to Mod 1, I was living in San Francisco. I lived there full time for 15 years. And I heard Dr. Rob speak at a conference or something. And he was so kind. He took me to dinner afterward and we, sort of hit it off. And I then became a CSAT eventually. And then I ended up kind of following in his footsteps as well, going to the same institution that he went and getting my PhD in clinical sexology. Just finished that about maybe 2 years ago now. And yeah,
And that's great. And let's talk a little bit about dropping groups, but please, like we really want your questions. We can talk for an hour, but that won't serve you well. So, but the drop-in groups, I know that has been a special thing for you, to host the drop-in groups, and I sub in on the betrayed partner drop-in groups. So different than this because they are not recorded. And when Skip is doing that, he's holding a safe space for the participants in that. But you've got some people that have been there for quite,
longer than I have,
yeah.
literally longer than I've been coming. Yeah, for sure. And again, if I may back it up a second, if y'all don't know, Rob Weiss is a social worker, and so am I. And Rob, really at his heart, is incredibly generous and he wants to give away. And so he developed this platform called Sex and Relationship Healing.com, where there are 5 groups a day, maybe on there.
It depends on the day, but I haven't counted in a while, but there's like 19 groups across the week. So yeah,
So
yeah,
19 groups
yeah.
and people much more qualified than I am that are leading groups that are published. I mean, and so anyway, so they asked me to lead this a group for Rob Weiss wrote a book called Cruise Control for Gay Men. And so they had a group called Cruise Control for Gay Men that were sex addicts. And they asked me to lead it for 5 or 6 years ago. And I started doing that on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. And again, there are attendees that have been coming almost every week longer than I have. So it's really an honor to be able to give back for all that Seeking Integrity does and support that cause.
And I want to tag in. So Dr. David Fawcett, who is talk about accomplished, he wrote Less Men and Meth, but his Sex Under the Influence about sexualized drug use. I love that book. And, he hosts personally the Tuesday night group for men who are struggling with co-occurring sex, porn, and substances. And it could be alcohol, it could be meth and stimulants, it could be opiates, it could be whatever, cannabis. Cannabis is really on the uprise. So that is the one place where you can go talk about all of these issues. And so, I mean, we have unique things. We have groups for professionals. So if there's a mental health or medical professional, male, there's a separate group. Female, there's a separate group. For betrayed partners who are professionals, there's a separate group. I mean, we have all of these different groups and many for betrayed partners from a codependent lens. So, everything we do is from a codependent lens, but we want to have that safe space. So if you haven't already checked them out, if you go to seekingintegrity.com, you can link to them, directly.
And Tammy, if you don't mind,
Mhm.
again, before we go, I want y'all to know that I don't work for Rob. I don't work for Seeking Integrity. And I'm not getting, things for accolades or whatever, but I just sincerely want to share my gratitude with them for all they do for Tammy and Rob, what y'all do for the community. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was doing a phone call with somebody that was seeking help. Sort of. They were I haven't completely decided. And the gentleman said, "You sound like a cheerleader." And I was like, "I am a cheerleader for recovery. I am passionate about people getting the help that they need, and for betrayed partners, the support that they need and deserve, And so, we get this. We know it's hard, it's messy, it's complicated, it's painful. And we also know what recovery looks like on the other side of it. And we want people to find that. And all of the resources, yes. Dr. Rob is a social worker, and and it shows, I mean, we've got all of those groups and webinars and free podcasts, previously recorded webinars. The work groups are low cost, but highly effective, but to get a live person facilitating, a group that will help guide you through this process, supplemental to working with a qualified professional. We highly recommend that. But to have that, it's amazing. And then for guys that are really, really struggling, the two things that we do in person: residential treatment for men, 14, 21, or 28-day length of stay, expert help. Like, you will not find a more
And the
expert clinical
staffing
team.
ratio is
Yeah.
just
Yeah. 5
incredible.
master's or PhD level professionals to no more than 8 men at a time. You
Did
can't find
y'all
that
hear that? I mean,
anywhere else.
5 to 8, 5 professionals to 8 clients. I mean,
Yes.
unbelievable.
Yes.
And
And
again,
focused in this area. I mean,
I,
that's it.
I'm not getting anything for this, but the house is beautiful. They have a chef that's amazing, and it's just incredible work that's done. It's a gift that people give themselves to go through that program, I think.
And if you're a betrayed partner going like, "I'm going to be eating macaroni and cheese while he's getting a chef," it's healthy food. It's just so that they can do the work. And the house is nice. It is not the Ritz-Carlton. So I want to preface it with, you're
Sure.
well taken care of, because you're going to be doing the deeper work. This is not just about stopping it's like substance programs. It's like, stop the problematic behavior, which is the substances, and you'll be all better. And we're going like, yeah, that's not it. You really have to unpack holistically all of these things. And so you need to be well cared for. And many people who are, starting a recovery journey aren't taking care of their physical bodies. They're not eating well. They're doing lots of other things. And so to create that safe environment and start a plan, where they're well taken care of and, provided healthy food, et cetera, that's a component of the journey. We're looking, I say the guys are safely cocooned, in the house, so they can do that deeper work. The other thing before we get to the question is, the other thing that we do that's in person is the Empowered Women's Retreat, which is for women only. It's about you getting the healing that you need. It's got almost nothing to do with him. Like, it's like, you're not going to be just talking about him. You're going to be doing the healing work for you. So those are the only two things that we do that require in-person attendance. Everything else is anybody worldwide who has access to the internet can participate. And that was the Dr. Rob, social worker, I mean, that was his goal. And we came together in 2017. Didn't really have a plan. And well, actually, the plan that we were thinking is not what we created. And we have, but we're a small company. So we've been able to go, oh, there's a need for this. So we create it. I mean, all of those drop-in groups, they started with a couple, and, and then somebody goes, oh, what about this? And I'm like, most of them, I say, great idea, and I find somebody to do it. There's a couple that we won't do, but other than that, we really want to have, the offerings and opportunities. So lots of people like Dr. Skip volunteer their time. They could be working with a paid client, and they volunteer their time to hold that safe space for people. So, okay,
We got 3
we
questions.
got questions.
Exciting.
We're going to get on to questions. Thanks for listening. Okay, does it matter in their recovery? So this sounds like from a betrayed partner. If an SA is scared sober, or if they choose to come clean. Married 26 years. SA husband acted out for the last 5 years, 9 months since D-Day.
And so I'm getting the gist of the question is the reason that they come to recovery, like scared sober, ultimatum type thing, or they just decide on their own volition to come into recovery. Um,
Yes. And my experience is, I say this all the time, until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, no addict, and I'm not just talking about sex, gets help. So, uh, you know, I'm trying to think if I know anybody who goes, it's just a good day to get into recovery. What are your thoughts?
well, I wouldn't have a private practice if it weren't for people that were upset with their partners that they wanted them to get help. And I truly believe that it doesn't matter why people come in, it's why they stay. And
Yes.
I don't know if you get spiritual or whatever, the reason that people are brought in, there are people that are mandated from court. There are people that have had horrible consequences in their life. There are people that their partners, are upset. Um, I have on my caseload right now, I may have two clients out of 25 that decided to come in on their own. And it is a challenge sometimes for them to stay sober because there's not anything in place, any consequences, bumpers to kind of motivate them to continue to stay sober.
And for a betrayed partner, it does need to shift, and until and unless we own our recovery. This is not about you, making the rules or saying you need to do that, because then we just get resentments and we'll go act out anyway. So yes, at some point we go, wait, I want to do this. I want to be a congruent person. I want to be a person of integrity. I want to quit doing the things that are harmful to me and to everyone, that's in my wake, including my married partner for 26 years, all of those things. So we do have a shift, but if you've been on before, you probably have heard me say, addiction, whatever form, is a maladaptive coping mechanism. Typically, something happens, usually before age 10, where numbing out, dissociating, escaping, all of those things, compartmentalizing, becomes a really good idea. Like your parents, weren't going like, let's talk about your feelings, whatever. I mean, and I'm not being snarky about that, but like there wasn't space, there was some reason. And a maladaptive coping mechanism, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to escape, all kinds of things. And the intensity with, sex addiction, porn addiction, high risk behavior, intensity, all of those things. But also the compartmentalization of like, yeah, I'm doing all of these things and I really love my wife, and partners are like, how could you possibly do this? I can't imagine. No, you can't. And that's why addicts need other addicts to understand that, and partners need other partners that get, how painful this is. But as Dr. Rob says all the time, nothing you did or didn't do caused this, but at 9 months, I hope he has started to really take ownership of his recovery journey, because it will not be sustainable if he doesn't. So
And just to underscore what Tammy said in the beginning, sadly, the greater the consequences, the more desperate somebody is. Usually, they're going to hopefully work hard, to keep what they've got, maintain. Um,
well, and don't you find that window closes too? It's like you have a window of opportunity and that
insane.
snapshot. Oh, I got this. I've learned my lesson. I said the same things.
And I feel like I treat addicts, partners, and couples. I do all three. But if I'm doing addict work, I feel like the crux of my work, the main thing is to reframe things from a partner lens. Period. The whole time, just let's build that capacity as a muscle for your partner, and which would give them motivation to continue to stay. I think of that, the Buddhist saying of when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And not always. Sometimes they're thrust into something and then they stay.
Well, the teacher appeared maybe by, a little brute force, but, but yeah, and sadly, even with qualified help and with whatever, yeah, I mean, I've been in recovery for quite a few years, and I know lots of people who, are like, yeah, I'm going to do this and all that, and then they, waltz away. They don't stay with it, and so I'm doing the talk for the webinar on Wednesday, and it's like, what does real recovery look like? Because that question has come up a bunch of times, and I'm like, I'm going to take that one on. So, so we're going to talk about what that really looks like, and part of that is that it becomes, owned by the person that is in recovery. So, and one more thing, and then we'll go to the next question, but the trade partner, please make sure that you are taking care of you and
Yes.
that the focus for you is on you. If he's going to stay in recovery, if he's going to stay on that journey, he will or he won't. And you aren't going to make him, it won't ever get internalized but you can take care of you for sure. So,
And that's the oxygen mask thing that we hear that's so
yes.
cheesy, but it's so true. You have to take care of yourself so that you can take care of everybody else, when, yeah.
And I'm putting in, because the new boundaries work group starts tomorrow. And Debbie McCrae is the queen of healthy boundaries. And people go, well, I've seen her on the webinars. This is different. This is not just, this is working on what you need. And they're all, it's not punishment. It's not control. It's, how do I find the right boundaries for me? And how do I have the support to hold that? How do I take care of my internal boundaries that I'm not betraying myself? So I just put the link in there. It starts tomorrow. I would, if you're a partner, if you think you know everything about boundaries, I don't, and I've been doing this a long time. I can always learn more. So I would encourage you to consider that as a gift for yourself. So,
Question 2.
yes, betrayer here, currently participating in the Tuesday Troy Love Healing Attachment Wounds course. Yay. My question, which I will bring to this group tomorrow, is I'm struggling with getting to the next level as far as identifying childhood wounds and those who perpetrated these wounds. I miss the elephant right in front of my face as I've normalized behaviors and family environments as simply my childhood. Do you have any tips to help see both the peripheral stuff as well as the big stuff, which I'm sometimes blind to? Thank you. So common, so common. We get guys at the residential treatment. Oh, I had a perfectly normal childhood. And you start unpacking it, so Skip, what are your thoughts?
Well,
And we
and
both love
again,
Troy Love, by the way. So,
well, and that's what I want to do if I can. If y'all don't know, Troy Love is amazing, and he has a model that is about finding peace. This is a book that Troy has written before, and what he's really trying to get at here is our shame. And so many addicts come in. It's probably one of the number one feelings that addicts have is shame. And so Troy will take people through the shadows of shame, which is a kind of internal family systems sort of parts work. Troy was doing this long before IFS got really, really popular. And so shadows of shame are like the judge and the politician and the royal, which is better, and yada, yada, yada. So Troy will put somebody in what he calls the healing seat, and he'll take them through this 9-phase model of getting in touch with their shame. Start out with the negative core beliefs and then end up at the truth, which is positive. That's a plug for Troy. I love this question. And if I may, I think going back to basics is number one to get the firm foundation before you do this work here. And I feel like that's one of the number one things I do in addition to the empathy piece is get a recovery calendar. And I'm not saying to this person that you haven't done this already. Hopefully you have, but get your recovery calendar going. It doesn't have to be 12-step, but if it is, have a sponsor that you call and use, be doing the steps. I like to say do something every day, group wise, if you can, and then if you have a spiritual practice, medication, whatever it is, but get those basics done, get the behaviors of getting rid of things, limiting access, number one. So after that's done for a while and people are drying out, then you get to do this piece here. And I think that the tip that I have, if I may, is, let me say it for me, to keep an open mind. Um, I think I know the way things should be, and I need to just keep an open mind. And it's hard sometimes for me to receive feedback. And so I think that's one tip. Tammy, what else do you think of?
well, I was thinking because kids always normalize that this is how everybody's family is, and I'm the problem. I am not shocked when you're saying this, that you found addiction, maladaptive coping mechanism. And so it's hard to look at yourself as, so I put Troy Loves, but after you finish Troy Loves, I would highly encourage you participating in Dr. Eddie Caparucci's, because he does inner child. And both of those guys affirm each other's work, so we've got work groups from both of those guys. I'll throw that one in there too. But I bet there's some little boy back there that is going like, like I didn't get this or whatever. And like I said, attachment wounds and inner child, they really are, so balancing for each other. And I think you can benefit from both. And I'm with Skip, like you have to have a really solid foundation before you start poking at those things. It may be the elephant in the room, but that elephant is behind a massive little screen that is going like, yep, nope, but you might be able to see just like an ear or part of my trunk. And that's all I can allow you to do. This is done in layers, because sometimes if you look too much at that whole elephant, you're going to go overwhelming, and it can be a trigger. So make sure you've got support, to be able to do those things. And here's another thing. I think if you are able to have compassion for the family members, you're working on getting the help that you need. Most people, like, we look at generational trauma and stuff like that. I mean, my grandparents didn't have mental health people, I mean, like all of those things, that just wasn't a thing, and that would be shameful and all of that. So look, you're looking to break that cycle. You're looking to pull the elephant out into the light and look at it. Yay. And be really kind to yourself, as you're doing this. So, but yeah, Troy is amazing. We love him. So
And I think just to piggyback, and again, it's so fun to be able to do this with Tammy. The therapist job is going to be to build safety with the client first before they can do this. And oftentimes that can take some time. And I want to say that everybody wants to know why, no matter what
yeah.
it is. If it's why is the addict acting out? Why do I stay in this relationship with somebody that's acting out? What are my childhood wounds, whatever? That's such a common question. And it really gives people a framework in which to work through things. But if it were with sex addiction in particular, not childhood wounds, the behavior is still there. So we still have to work on the behavior itself. So, and Rob would say over and over in the beginning, we're not doing deep psychotherapy and trauma work. We're doing cognitive behavioral work, getting people into good habits first, and then doing this. So I don't know, Tammy, if we answered that
Yeah,
question well
no, no,
enough.
and I agree. In fact, I've said to two different groups of people, and the why is of interest, and you'll learn in layers. I've like literally decades in recovery, and about 7, 8 years ago, I had another. In fact, some of Troy Love's work, with attachment wounds and rejection wounds and all that. And I went, oh, massive. And it was helpful to have a name for it. Didn't mean I wasn't in recovery. Could not have done that work early in recovery. Would have, tipped me off the pier. So like you have to have that foundation so that you can, and I remember Dr. Rob was on one of these, and somebody was like, doing too much trauma work and, getting overwhelmed. He said, tell your therapist you need to slow down. It's okay to slow the process down. Do what you can do and maintain that foundation of recovery. The last thing you want to do is do something that where you just go, I can't cope, and I'm going to return to problematic behaviors, because I mean that makes it much tougher. So I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, it'll be interesting to compare and contrast what Troy says.
Yes.
Okay. Now, and I put Dr. Eddie's Going Deeper starts again in May. So
And that's Eddie
seriously,
Caparucci, if you don't know.
yes,
And
yes, and he's going to be on Thursday, and I already know what his topic is, and it's going to be another good one. So, okay. My betraying partner is in recovery, porn addiction, 4 months since discovery. Porn use got much worse with recent retirement a year ago. I am still working. He has really felt the loss of his identity with his retirement and sensed deep loss of meaning. He is quite down and feeling lost, and this makes focusing on my healing more difficult. He is doing the work. Advice for us.
the first thing that comes to my mind, and I started my career, I think I've been licensed almost 30 years now, which is kind of frightening. Well, okay, how about 26? Um, and I worked with severely mentally ill in San Francisco. Um, and what I learned from that population is structure is everything. So it makes perfect sense from a developmental phase that if one is retired, then they have more time on their hands and then they struggle. And even if one is retired, they can get so involved again. I don't mean to be so overly passionate, Pollyanna, whatever, but there's so much involvement that one can do in terms of group or 12 step or whatever it is in terms of recovery that they could do that would give them plenty of structure.
Yes, and you will see that I'm popping into the chat 12-step meetings. So my colleague Scott and I did a webinar on the 12-step meetings. We talk about 90 meetings in 90 days. And like I mean this with all due respect, but 4 months since discovery. So he's in abstinence, and I don't hear that I mean, like if you went, yes, he's been going to, a 12-step meeting or doing our drop-in groups. If he's done, I gave the link for the work groups. If is he doing the porn addiction 101 work group? Like the more he does, and I, let's say, had a moment when I first got into recovery that I didn't have a career. There was a reason, and I had, but you know what, it was an opportunity. I had an opportunity. I leaned in. I was going to more than one meeting a day. I was doing that work. And you know what, part of 12 step is service, being of service, because otherwise we get all into ourselves. And so he would have an opportunity if he really leans in. And of course he's going to be depressed if he's sitting around the house going, oh, poor me, I don't have a job. And I'm saying this, with kindness. This is not like, railing on somebody, but I'm feeling sorry for myself because I'm retired. I don't have any purpose. All of my purpose has been gone. Find a new purpose. Part of the outer circle is finding healthy things that we need to do in order to live
Yeah.
a healthy life. And it isn't just recovery work, but it can be, working at the humane or volunteering at the Humane Society or whatever, finding purpose. And that's the opportunity. But I want to go to the he, and again, said with caring, he can't focus on your healing. He needs to focus on getting himself a solid foundation. So abstinence is just not doing the things that we weren't supposed to be doing. Sobriety is, I'm starting to get a clue. Recovery takes 2 to 5 years. He's way early in this process. He can't hold space for you. He doesn't know how yet. He's still focused on feeling sorry for himself because I don't have purpose. I don't have a rudder. He can get a rudder, and then you guys can move forward. So for you, our betrayed partner work group, the boundaries work group, our drop-in groups for betrayed partners, all of you're here, fantastic. All of those things will be helpful for you. But you being with a tribe of partners who get it is really important, and him being with other people, other addicts, and getting a clue how to do that.
And talking about the outer circle behaviors,
Yeah.
establishing relationships with other men. I'm going to be heteronormative, other men that are in recovery that are, healthy and trying to walk the same path. And I don't usually really do this, but to quote Rob Weiss again, Rob would say that if you have to pick between individual or group, pick the group, because the group can give you something I can't give you. It really, really, really can. And then when they're around in recovery for a while and able to give it away themselves, this is getting into the next question. That's when, stage two really starts. I read ahead, Jamie. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's all good. That's why, yeah. So how can you tell when the addict starts making true change? What are the signs? Okay. Webinar on Wednesday. Come join us. My partner has been hiding in recovery, using the words, but still acting out. So he's not even abstinent. So I go back to abstinence is just not acting out, just not doing the things that we weren't supposed to be doing. We don't get a gold star for that. We can get a chip, but we don't get a gold star. And then sobriety is, I'm starting to do that. This is called talking the talk. If I'm using all the right words, and it can be weaponized, and I'm really sorry, and I hate that as a person in recovery. And some of us, are more broken than others, and that's just the reality. So for you, like, here's the deal: trust your gut. You already know he's still acting out. So what are you doing to take care of you? If you haven't already signed up for the Healthy Boundaries Work Group, what a great opportunity to make sure that your boundaries are rock solid, that you know what they are. It's not about control. It's not about punishment. It's about, making sure I'm taking care of me, and that there are consequences that are logical, that, if you are not able to hold this space, then I'm going to whatever. And it's always about, what you're going to do, not what you can't make anybody do anything, even leave the house, so I would encourage you to focus on that, but you have an active addict,
Well, and there may be another interpretation. So I'm reading, my partner has been hiding in recovery, using all the world's words, but still acting out. So they're going through the motions, right? But
talking the talk.
you don't see the proof in the pudding, right? And how do you know? It's the y'all are going to think I'm a groupie in a minute, but the story that Rob wrote about when the wife says, "Did you take out the trash?" And the husband says, "Yeah, I took out the trash." And at 5 o'clock, he's looking around and he like takes out the trash and she sees him do it. And he comes inside and she says, I want a divorce. And it's not about taking out the trash. So, how do we know when people are in that next level of recovery? When they catch themselves in the middle of, you know what, that's an exaggeration. That's not exactly true. Um, you know, I'm being defensive right now. The tone of my voice is too high. That's, I think, demonstrating pure empathy when they can sit there with you in your pain that they caused. Just be there with you. Listen, not do the mansplaining, go into advice giving and whatever. Just be there and empathetically listen. Anything else, Tammy, that you can think
No,
of?
yeah. So, but you have an addict in active addiction. He is at best talking the talk and not walking the walk. And you will know when it starts to change. And again, it takes 2 to 5 years to have it really be incorporated, but you will see signs along the way. I was talking to somebody, and it had been about a year, and they were starting to see things, shift. And I'm like, good, but you can't expect, one quick story. It's you know, like I still do stuff and I get mad that I did. I don't anymore, but at one big sobriety birthday, I did something and I owed a massive amends, and I was just like, oh, I want to be like little miss, in recovery and all zen. And the reality is that isn't I'm human. I'm an addict in recovery, and it's an opportunity. And as soon as I shifted it to I have an opportunity, and I like myself now more than I did 2 years ago. And 2 years from now, I know I'll be able to say the same thing because it's a continuing journey. So things continue to get better if we're willing to do the work.
And you're almost getting to gratitude too, and that's
Yeah.
that's next level recovery as well.
Yeah.
There's an old and by the way, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Tammy's been in recovery longer than I have, and I've been in for a very, very long time. Um,
We have
there's a
nice
joke.
chips.
There's a joke in early recovery that we hear. If you sober up a horse thief, what do you have, Tammy?
A sober horse thief.
Yeah, a sober horse thief. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's still the same person, even though they're going through motions and whatever. There's that next phase that people
Yeah.
need.
Yeah. But we can learn if we're willing to do the work. But if we're just, lots of people go sit in a meeting and warm a seat and they don't do the work and they don't change. And and they're either a sober horse thief or ultimately they go, wait, this is not working. A lot of them go back out, no offense, but it's not sustainable. So, okay, the next question. I'm listening with my wife tonight. Is there a recommendation on how I react when she is triggered? Don't react. Act.
I, there's this book by a guy named Newton Hightower that is called Anger Busting 101. And it gives a
Ooh.
list of 15 banned behaviors. And what it'll say is if you can, now I don't know about this in this situation, but if you can leave safely, leave, get out of there. If not, don't open up your mouth, just like Tammy said. And it's these basic things like all I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten. Don't raise your voice. Don't name call. Don't mock. Don't point your finger. But the biggest thing that I can think of as a therapist is when things are calm and level, ask her, how should I react when you're triggered? See, come up with a plan beforehand. Try to negotiate it when you're not triggered. But if you're trying to negotiate that when you're triggered, it's never going to happen.
Again, it sounds snarky and I'm not meaning, but like, if I react, I'm in trouble because that'll come from an emotional place. If I am thoughtful, I love what Skip said. Yeah. Ask her, say when, because this is going to happen again. So when you're triggered, what would be helpful from me and what won't, ask for both. Cause then, and have, and repeat it back. Say, so what I'm hearing you say is this, am I correct? And if she says yes, great. And if she says, well, it's not quite that, listen, and then repeat that back, this is learning. This is like everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. Like this is like emotional kindergarten. And I'm going to say also for the partners, like the world is full of triggers, and triggers are an opportunity. If I'm triggered, it's an opportunity for me to look at what's going on. Did I not sleep good enough last night? Is it something I'm emotionally dysregulated? What do I need to do to take care of myself? And that can be tell my partner, I'm really triggered right now and I'm feeling dysregulated, and I'm going to step away for 20 minutes and I'll come and check back. Whatever it is that works for you. But triggering is is about me. It's not, it really isn't about the other person. Rarely do I find people are intentionally doing something, you know, like that's incredibly rare, but there's something within me, and something one day may trigger me and another day might not, so it really is, where am I on that? And what do I need to do to take care of myself? But yes, we can make somebody's triggering worse, and so asking, communication, it's something that's missing in most, in most relationships before recovery. So it's another opportunity. Get tired of me saying it. All of this stuff is an opportunity. It's an opportunity. So
And Tammy's, talking about basic communication skills. And there's a guy named Marshall Rosenberg that wrote a book called Nonviolent Communication. And he said that if he were going to rename it, if he could, he would rename it to compassion communication. But it's basically, the model of what Tammy said. What I thought I heard you say was this. Am I close? Did I get it right? And so many people are at work making decisions all day long, going through solving things, whatever, and they come home in that mode. And we don't want that, sometimes. Sometimes I just want to be listened to, heard, and validated. Like, God, that must really suck that you're going through that. It's really sad, that kind of thing, rather than what I'm hearing is you shouldn't feel that way, which invalidates me. And I come from an invalidating environment, and it's a trigger.
or being defensive, like, or feeling I did something wrong, and getting into that wounded little boy person. You can't show up as an adult if you're a wounded little boy, and so learning to hold emotional space. One of the things I love to do is, like, you won't be able to see it because the way I'm sitting, but like holding my hands out right, kind of right in front of my, my stomach area, and I'm holding a bowl. And that is I'm catching the emotions there. And I can just do it real subtly, but that's my reminder. I'm not a sponge. I'm not taking on all, whatever negative is coming at, I'm holding the space, and there's this container that's catching it. And so then I can look at it and go, okay, this is what's happening. But I'm not going, oh my gosh, and getting into drama and making it about me. And I mean, there's so many little things like that, and it's just learning what works for you that helps you hold the space, but asking is a good place to start too. Okay, next one. Betrayed partner D-Day 5 months ago. Step one, disclosure last week. However, my experience with PA's CSAT felt very disrespectful to me. They never reached out to meet me proactively. I kept having to do it. Never verified addict's timeline or disclosure. Did not provide adequate feedback on my disclosure. My CSAT did most review. They would not commit to believing in prodependence versus codependence. There's a problem right off the bat. I therefore created a new boundary that I would not read my impact letter with his CSAT there. My CSAT is great and will speak with my husband, but cannot represent us both or us as a couple. Other partners in my group have had similar experiences with their partner's CSAT. What is the CSAT training criteria on partner involvement? Ooh, that's like a really, really big question. And I'm so sorry, like I'm horrified at all that, but like, so let's start back. The first questions when you're finding a CSAT, like when I'm giving referrals, I just gave one today that I said, I think they use prodependence, but double check. There's new CSAT since I left, a number of years ago. I've been reaching out to the CSAT community and having conversations because I want to make sure that the referrals that I'm giving are true. And so ask before, and that it's not just the partners, going from a prodependent lens. It's really important, that they are doing that, because otherwise, it gets to be. So that's a little aside. I'm not shaming on you guys, but so here's where you are. So Skip, what are your thoughts on
Well,
this?
and to piggyback off what Tammy is saying is, did they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions? A
Good
lot of
intentions.
damage can
Yeah.
be done
Yeah.
by very well-meaning therapists.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't know necessarily, I don't know that they don't know what they're doing, but they don't know the impact that they could be having, or that they could be undoing. Like if I'm trying to build the capacity for empathy, and um, somebody is saying you should set your boundaries to an addict, and you shouldn't put up with her doing that, and how's that going to go over, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so that would be undoing the work. Um, Again, there. are two people, and again, I'm not giving plugs to people. And Tammy, I hope you don't mind me saying
I'm
this.
throwing, I'm all throwing this in the chat. So
In my opinion, Dan Drake and Janice Caudill, and you can't, maybe you can't. Yeah, you actually can see.
I'm, yeah,
Dan Drake and Janice Caudill are the authorities on disclosure. This is the book for the addict. It's blue. This is the books for the partner. They're green. There are 3 volumes there, and so that's. But this isn't helping you because you've already had your disclosure, and I'm just really sorry that it went the way that it did.
yeah. And so, and the CSAT training criteria on partner involvement, and it's changed. There are CSATs that, I was there for 10 and a half years. I mean, that from 20 years ago, and there was no such thing as codependence. And there are some that really hold those lines and use that language. And often I hear from a partner who's gone and says, this person used this and I'm not going to work with them. But so let's talk about you, and you're going like, I want to do this. And I guess I normally am stuck that both people really need, their own CSAT. But if your CSAT is willing to hold the space, for the two of you, if you've been through the disclosure part, if you both can feel safe with your CSAT, and that CSAT is okay with that, I'm kind of going with, that seems like that person knows you and knows the situation. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the gold standard is in ITAP, the governing board for CSATs, they tell us that it's a three-legged stool, that there's individual for the partner, the addict, and then the couple as well.
Yeah.
And so that would be ideal. But when something like this has happened, um, I mean, I think that it could be done that way, but I'm reading that they cannot represent us both as a couple there. And I don't want you to go back for, more invalidation or disrespect, but I wonder if there's any way that it could be repaired, that you could talk to the therapist if they would be willing, or if you would be willing. And I'm not saying that you have to do that. I'm different in therapy. If I'm treating an addict, the partner can come basically anytime that they want to come. And rarely has that ever been taken advantage of. Maybe I'll spend an hour the first session, and then usually it's 15 minutes in a month, and then usually it's 5 minutes here and there afterward. So I try, even though I'm the addict's therapist, to have the partner come. I don't want to hear his side. I don't want to be gaslit and lied to and whatever. I want to hear your side as well. So I'm just wondering if there's any repair that could be done if they would be willing to talk with you.
And I would really talk to your CSAT, because what Skip said is there's another alternative, that you find another person. My challenge is that you guys are in between, and having it be a big, long, drawn out thing, while you ramp up with another
Not
therapist,
fair for you to wait again. You've waited this
yeah,
long.
yeah.
You have to get to your impact letter. Now let's just put
Yeah.
you on hold again.
Yeah, I know. And that feels torturous. So I would really talk to your CSAT, and talk to your spouse and go, if is, how can we navigate this, and see. But yeah, I'm most worried about you partner, in this whole, scenario with us. But I would definitely talk to your professional, because it sounds like you have a really good professional that you feel supported by. So that's great. Okay, next question. Um, what if at no point do they show a single shift? They don't lament their addiction or compulsions. They go through years of faking recovery, but make zero progress. You guys don't talk enough about this, and what to do, or how to know if your sex addict is even capable of healing. My situation is worse than most. I get most addicts want to heal. That's not true. They just don't want the negative consequences. But please talk about it when it's not just futile, but dangerous. I was told to wait a year before divorce, and my husband sexually offended several others. None of this is what we say, like we did a whole series on should I stay or should I go, including talking about mediation and divorce and how to recognize, I need to stay. We don't go, oh, you need to stay for a year. We go, you can put the relationship in safe harbor. I say for 30 days, maybe 60 days. I and see, you can always renegotiate and go, yeah, I'm willing to stay for another 30 days. But why would you partner be stuck with somebody who is clearly choosing not to do anything, and even has more detrimental and unsafe behaviors? Like that is, I mean, and I hear that you haven't heard us say that, but we are really clear and say that often. Dr. Rob has said throw him out, lock the doors. I mean, he has said that a number of times. Now, that isn't everybody, but I'm going to get the should I stay or should I go webinar link. So,
Yeah.
Dr.
And
Skip, what do you have?
while she's doing that, sexual offending is very different than sex addiction itself. And I think that the suggestion, I get this, no major changes for the first year. We do say that to people, but if safety is an aspect, then I'm so sorry this is happening. And please take care of yourself, you know?
And we usually say that for the addict because you know what? They're going like, yeah, if I just leave, then I can go do whatever I want to do or whatever. But yeah, I have to like really disagree that most addicts, want, most like I started off with, no addict, and I don't care about the addiction, is willing to change until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. And many don't ever get to that point. I'm pained at where you are at. And I hope you have a qualified professional to support you. But I just put the should I stay or should I go? It was a series of 4 webinars. Kristen Snowden's was 10 questions to journal about. The next one was 2 partners. One stayed, one left. And there's no judgment on whatever anybody does. The third one was a divorce mediator, a relationship mediator who works within sex addiction field. And then the fourth was an attorney. And so it was Stuart,
Mhm.
yeah, did that particular one. Just so you had, it's for information. We want people to be educated and be able to make the best choice for themselves. But when someone's saying you should, I don't use that. I try really hard not to use that line. I don't know what you should do. I'm going to give you information and options so that you can decide what is, true and authentic for you. Um,
I,
so,
I also hope that you're not feeling judged by Tammy or me because that's not the
no,
idea. We get that there's so many reasons that people stay, be they cultural, be they religious, be they
yes,
money, be they the age,
financial. Oh my gosh, yeah.
the age that you are starting your life all over again. That, I mean, there are many, many reasons, but safety first, always.
Yeah. Yeah, like my heart breaks for you, and I'm so sorry that in any messaging that you have heard that's the message you took with it. That is never our intent, for this. We want. I'm actually so Deborah Doak. Her whole thing was stay well, go with a plan, or wait with intention. I stuck that posted on my wall because I wanted to remember that. And if you're going to stay well. If you're going to go, go with a plan, have a plan for it. But if you wait with intention. And so if and she did the third one, so check that series out. So
And the scary part of that to me is no recovery whatsoever, not engaging in recovery
yeah.
whatsoever, not making any progress. That's the most, even more frightening to me.
Yes, and there are partners who choose to stay for, like you said, lots of reasons. And as long as you have a safety plan and that you are okay and that your life isn't focused on that or negatively impacted, by so many aspects of it, I mean, lots of people are like, if they find their joy and they, go, this person is choosing their path. We still have some things that we enjoy together, or it makes sense. I'm not changing my lifestyle, whatever, but you have to do it. No, you don't have to. We always hope that you choose to do it with, with your safety and happiness in mind. When addiction, is at play and it steals the joy from partners and they don't get it back, because this is a process and you won't be joyful for a while. But in a recovery journey, you are joyful. You can see good things, and so that's we're always working towards that for both of you. Are there any groups for co-ed betrayed partners going through pre-disclosure and disclosure process, feeling alone in this process as a betrayed male? Yes. Yes, we have not only co-ed. So Sunday night is mixed gender drop-in group. Angela Spearman hosts that particular drop-in group. So check that one out. And then on Tuesday nights, we have a male betrayed partner group. It is specifically for men. And it is, whether you're in a relationship with a male or female, it is a safe space, but it's only male addicts in that particular group. Separately, the betrayed partner work group that Angela Spearman hosts, that has, I think, every time been mixed gender. So there's an opportunity for you as a male partner to participate in that as well. So yes, we do have resources for you. You are not alone. Okay, next question. I'm the betrayer, 15 months sobriety, 12 months of honesty, then 3 months ago told a fear-based lie from childhood since I have struggled with honesty and transparency. This has caused disconnection and distance. Currently an in-home separation. I have recommitted to honesty, but I need help with emotional expression and connection, especially with extra distance this has created. Thanks. Thank you for thank you for sharing this. This is, this is part of that honesty journey. So Dr. Skip, what do you think?
Well, I like at the end, I need help with emotional expression and connection. Sex addiction is an intimacy disorder, and to me, the definition of addiction involves numbing out, not being connected whatsoever, that sort of piece. I'm wondering if you, by any chance, have a professional that could help you, with the emotional expression piece. So many of us are, just so blocked from emotions. And the other thing that's interesting, and if I may, 12 months of honesty, that's amazing. I don't know if I've, and I'm not saying this badly, but I don't know if I've been honest, for 12 months. That's a long time. And I really hone in on this with my clients a lot about what are the different types of lies that you can tell, and lies of omission, I mean, whatever they are, that sort of thing. So, and I also, what I love about SPAA, Sex and Porn Addicts Anonymous, is they have a separate sobriety date. They have your sobriety date for your bottom line behaviors. I have relapsed. I have acted out. The next one is your middle circle sobriety date, which they call edging, but objectifying whatever. I add two more to those. I add a lying sobriety date, and I add for people that have anger issues an anger sobriety date as well. I think that those are really important things to track.
Yeah, so I just put in and I just pulled it up. Well, first of all, I put the 12 step, groups in, and that group is in there. So, but also out of the doghouse, I wonder about that work group, specifically for you. But, I also had mentioned earlier, the inner child. Yes, you talk about there was something back there, and I bet, one of, Dr. Eddie has a number of kids, he calls them the kids, and I bet there was a kid that showed up, in that situation and, and told the lie, in your adult body. And so you learning, more about those things. And you're at a great point, because you've established some sobriety, but you've got the opportunity now to start doing those layers. So attachment wounds, the inner child, out of the doghouse, all of those would be good work groups for really, taking that, digging in a little bit and learning some tools to use, so that, even the 24-hour rule of, when I said that 23 hours and 59 minutes ago, it was not fully the truth, lies of omission, or it wasn't, I didn't really take out the trash, whatever it is, and then hopefully it gets to be, 5 minutes ago when I said that that wasn't, the whole truth. We can learn. But yeah, like there's, like especially early on, I know for sure I didn't go that long. I didn't probably go a week without telling some version of, and and owning, like believing it myself,
And I'm
so
throwing exaggeration in as a lie.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm getting
yeah,
very black and white. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, next question. Betrayed partner 4 years since latest discovery, right now choosing to rebuild. Great, both in good recovery, but in the messy middle. I find a lot of support in the early days and for addicts, but a lack of betrayed partner choosing to stay, and what this looks like. For me, the messy middle is also learning how to give space for versus the demanding that naturally occurs in early recovery, broadening my tolerance for partners, learning new healthy connections, part one of two, skills versus instinct for avoidance. Okay, so part two. So yeah, to skip down to holding and being assertive, but loving and gentle in communication and boundaries and requests for connection versus demands and criticisms, and not taking his lack of skills and capability at a given stage personally and evidence of my worth. If I do, then knowing this signals my work and trauma. Can you speak to what is this messy middle in the 4 to 6 year post discovery period and what it looks like? Am I a healthy track? I would say yes, you're doing great. But what do you think, Dr. Skip?
I think so too. And I think the places for support, again, that's why Rob Weiss invented pro-dependence, the concept. And then he didn't do this, but people sprung up a 12-step group, with it. And so resources that I'm thinking of would be, I mean, for the partner specifically, we hear S-Anon, we hear COSA, and again, this platform right here, the sexandrelationshiphealing.com. I mean, there's so many there for partners itself. And then I'm thinking possibly a good couples therapist. I'm thinking, the groups for couples in recovery, healthy,
Oh,
HIR,
RCA. Yeah,
RC,
like that's a great
Recovering
one. That's a good idea.
Couples Anonymous,
Yeah.
or HIR is, I think, an offshoot of COSA or S-Anon or something. Healthy Intimate Relationships is what that is. So,
The challenge with COSA and S-Anon in particular, you're further down the pike, so you can discern, but they use a lot of codependence language, and so understanding, take what you need and leave the rest. But I love RCA. That's a because that's the two of you and navigating that. I put the Empowered Women's Retreat because like honestly, that's all about healing for you, that and what he's doing or not doing. He's sounds like he's tracking on the 2 to 5 year plan, and it gets better. And again, like decades of recovery, and I still do things where I need to make an amends. So we are learning, and there's a learning curve, and but I love that you're working on this together, and you're even asking these questions. And you may find like our drop-in groups for partners, sometimes they are a lot of new people, but it's also, what I hear often, oh, it's too depressing because everybody's in the stuck. And so, I still go to meetings, and, I'm not in that early recovery. And for you, I wonder what it would be like if you went back to like our betrayed partner groups and said, yes, it does get better. First of all, you'd have some gratitude that you aren't, in that particular situation, but you'll also be able to see how far you've come, and him too, but how far you've come, on this journey. But I love that you're, looking at, sometimes it's more personal work, the finding peace. I think, we all have voices of shame, and, little things that, pop up for us. I loved too, Dr. Eddie wrote, he and his wife, Terry, wrote a book for betrayed partners with their inner children. I even was like, I'll teach this course for you because I love it, and but you may find that useful. You may go, oh yeah, there I am, you can always email me, Tammy, Tami at seekingintegrity.com. I may think of some more options for you too. So, okay. So, and then here's the in-between question, for, does my SA husband need to be completely honest with the CSAT as to details of his acting out? I know for a fact that he has acted out with prostitutes that were transsexual males. He has voiced that he is too ashamed to say anything to his therapist. He didn't include this on his formal disclosure, but he did disclose to me. He actually had a relapse in November with the transsexual. Does he need to be completely transparent with his CSAT to heal?
100%. I mean, how is recovery going to happen if he can't be? And again, it's about that shame and whatever. In Patrick Carnes' book, Facing the Shadow, Facing the Shadows workbook, I think the second exercise there is our secrets. There are secrets that people have that they've kept forever, and it just, shame compounds with that. So I think 100% he should be, honest with his therapist, but I see why he's not, and I know people are not. And I wish that he would know the stories that we hear, because I don't want to, I mean, we've heard things like that and then some.
Okay. And so, do you have time for one more?
Of
Okay.
course.
Betrayed spouse here. Husband of 15 years has dove deep in his addiction again and left our home for the second time after discovery. He cannot cope with that he failed out of his actions and leaves versus finds recovery. The first time, 2022, he sought recovery after a few months of separation. We are 7 weeks post him leaving, and this deeply traumatic for me and our children. Will he ever come out of the shadows and recognize the pain he causes and choose a better life?
I don't think we can answer that. And I think that that's the sad part about this disease is the, I don't know, collateral damage, whatever, the people that get hurt, and I honestly don't, they're not thinking about that. And I know that's the whole point, but I don't think that we can answer that. I'm glad that, I hope it's okay to say, I'm glad that it sounds like you're taking care of yourself and your kids, but I just can't imagine how hard that is for all of you.
and I do hope you have really good support. And the pain is that not every addict chooses it. And, and if it's always like, I'm going to run, we actually label some of them runners, like, they can't show up, they run and run right back to the maladaptive coping mechanism. And I don't mean to sound trite, but, he clearly didn't have the tools to use in order to, not, not relapse. And after a certain point, like when I was in my active addiction, like I swear I had no choice. It was so compulsive. I just did it, I didn't know. And then I got recovery, and that taught me tools to use in order to learn to do life differently and to have the support. Now, had he even voiced to you, I'm feeling really triggered. I'm calling my therapist. I'm gonna re-up my 90 meetings in 90 days. I'm going to reach out to my sponsor, but I suspect back in 2022, he never, did the work that he needed to do. He didn't work the steps. I'm a big 12-step person. Steps 4 through 9 are housekeeping. That's where we, get rid of that shame. Going back to the question above, if that person is not working the 12 steps or is working the 12 steps, but did a 4-step and left off that behavior because it's too shameful, anything that we keep hidden will turn around and bite us. Like we will act out because we know we're not being truthful, we're not being integrous. When someone says you're such a good person, we know the truth is like, if you really knew who I was, you would not think that. And we have got to bring all of that stuff into light. And you know what, the point of 12-step is share. And therapists, trust me, they've heard it all. I mean, it's really rare that somebody, goes, oh, that's a new one. And then we just kind of go, well, we haven't heard that one before. It's not like, it's like, oh my gosh, so, but if we are truthful and bring it out, the stuff that I thought was the most shameful for me, when I did my 4th and 5th step and they went, wow, you're a typical female addict. And, it was just like, really? And like cause it was like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst person on the planet. So what I hear with this is he didn't do the work. And yes, you and your children, are left hurting, but there's healing for you. I'm sure that you are nurturing to your children. And while this is painful, they can get what they need. I don't know how old the kids are. It sounds like they're younger. Leilani Sinclair did a 2-part webinar on our site about adult children of sex addicts. So if you have adult children, you may want to check into that, and it may be useful for you on some level. But she was really clear that she only works with that. But that doesn't mean that you can't work with therapists that work with children around separation and divorce and relationship stuff that can help support them too. But I hope that you are getting the support that you need, because this is extra difficult for you. And you don't have control of him, but we always hope that somebody chooses to get a better life and show up, and take responsibility for action. So.
Well, and just one more resource, if I may. So we heard about Patrick Carnes' book, Facing the Shadow. Well, his daughter, Stephanie Carnes, has wrote Facing Heartbreak. And in here, there's a chapter about boundaries that you set for your own safety. And I wonder if that could be helpful too.
Well, and I'm going to like the queen of boundaries is Debbie McCrae. And I've already put it in there. Like she is, I've never seen anybody that actually, some people can talk about boundaries and other people can actually live them, and Debbie does. And internal boundaries and external boundaries, she can roll a 4-part talking boundary off her tongue, and I have to think about the parts, and like she just is so good at that. But she is such an advocate for partners holding boundaries for themselves, and she will teach you. Like you don't have to just read a book and try to figure it out, because boundaries are all unique. And so please, I put the work group is on our site. It starts tomorrow. There's 2 parts to it, and they're separate. And usually it's like you need to take Sex Addiction 101 before you can take Sex Addiction 101 Part 2. This one you don't. Like they're different, but I don't know anybody who gets boundaries enough that they don't need any help with it. Even Debbie will say that, because I tease her about that. So please, I encourage you to look at that, what you need, because I think you'll find that super helpful for you, in this difficult situation too. So, okay, we are out of time, and I so appreciate you, Dr. Skip, doing this. And I will ask again because I'm grateful for your time here on this. I'm always grateful for your time volunteering. And he also does the weekly peer case consultation group. So when you have a CSAT therapist, it doesn't even have to be a CSAT, but when you have a CSAT therapist who isn't on the peer group, that is an opportunity for them to make sure that they are clinically sharp, and they can reach out to me and they can get included in that. But Skip shows up. I I think he rarely misses a week, and that's just such a good group.
It's just so great to be with peers and be able to run things by, and then again to have Rob give expert guidance. I mean,
Yeah.
he's giving this away to us and not
Yes.
charging us. And yeah,
For the
and
betterment of the clients, like
it,
the therapists that show up for
right.
that, they're doing it for the betterment of their clients. It makes a difference. So
And like Tammy said, it doesn't have to be a CSAT. It does have to be a licensed therapist, but not a CSAT
yeah,
necessarily.
anybody who's working within the arena of betrayal trauma, sex and porn addiction, that's what the group focuses on. So those are where the cases are presented. So that you can always suggest that your therapist reach out, and consider that. I'm working on reaching out to people, but you can always give them a nudge as well. So okay, thanks everyone. Great
Good
questions.
night,
We
everybody.
appreciate you.
Sorry we didn't
Bye.
get to all your questions.
Yeah. Bye.